I've spent a lot of hot summer days sitting out on the bank frying in the summer heat, but like they say, a day of not catching anything is still better than a good day at work. Um, I chose to do my speech over fishing, and I chose fishing because everyone in this class has fished at one time or the other, and most people in this class really enjoy fishing and wanted to learn more about it. I started fishing when I was 3 years old, and like everything you do, the more you do it, the better you get. The more stuff you, the more times you do it, the more you learn about it each time. So I'm going to um, give you guys a few tips and tricks on fishing and tell you a little bit about them. And I'm going to tell you about three different types of fish. We're going to talk about the bass fish, catfish, and wiper. The first fish that I'm going to talk about is bass fish, and I'm going to tell you guys about three different types of bass fish. I'm going to talk about largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, and white bass. So your your bass usually live in farm ponds, lakes, and along the river. I generally prefer farm ponds to fish. Um, your largemouth bass are different from the other bass in the family because they're a greenish color and they have horizontal stripes across their body. And they get their name because their jaw extends past their eyes, which makes their mouth a lot larger than the other bass in the bass family. Smallmouth bass generally are more brown and they have vertical stripes, so their stripes go up and down. And they are, you'll know when you hook into a smallmouth bass, they put up a lot more of a fight than a largemouth. So that's the difference between a largemouth and a smallmouth. And our third type of fish, we have our white bass, which our white bass are more of a silverish slash white color, and they usually stay in the river and lakes, and about spring, about right now, they start to kind of flow, and they you can catch a lot of white bass along the river right now. All bass prefer to live under logs or in between rocks to protect them from other animals and fish in the water that are trying to eat them. Um, so the next part that I'm going to talk about is lures, and some of the lures that use I usually use a minnow with a spinner on it, and the spinner is just a little piece of metal, and when you're reeling it in, it just kind of circles, and it gives a reflection, and it gets the fish curious, so they come and bite on your bait. Um, I also use a Mepps and chatterbait, and I also learned while conducting my research for bass that bass are attracted to the color red, and they have been known to live for 20 to 25 years. I learned that from AmericanExpeditions.us. Um, and the next type of fish that I'm going to talk about is catfish. There are four types of catfish that I'm going to talk to you about today. I'm going to talk about bullheads, flatheads, channel, and blue cats. So first, we're going to start off with our bullheads. Um, bullheads are generally the smaller of the catfish family. They usually range from 2 to 5 pounds and about 15 inches long. Many people confuse bullheads with a small flathead because they're both brown and they both have squared tails, so they look a lot alike. They both live in murky water because they both feed on dead animals and fish. Down on whatever fish dies, it just sinks down to the bottom, and that's where they spend their time eating and stuff. So next we're going to talk about flatheads, and flatheads are generally the largest of the catfish family, and they range from 25 to 46 inches long and up to 123 pounds. and 123 pounds is also the state record in Kansas for flatheads, according to KansasOutdoors.com. My personal favorite catfish to catch is blue cats and channels. They're both smooth and scaleless, and channels are generally blue or like an olive color, kind of like a green. Channels are not as big. Usually they average about 5 to 20 pounds and about 24 inches long. Blue cats are generally blue, like a bluish grayish color, and that's where they get their name, blue cats. They also have white bellies. They're white underneath. They're also smooth and scaleless, and they typically average anywhere from 20 to 40 pounds and 25 to 40 inches, making them one of the biggest cats in the water, according to AmericanExpedition.us. So next, I'm going to talk about the catfish's habitats. Catfish generally like to feed on the bottom of lakes, rivers, and ponds, and this is generally why people use a bobber and a weight on their line. They use their bobber, they use their weight so their line goes all the way down to the bottom where the catfish are, where they feed from, and their bobber sits on top of the water. And when a catfish comes and you take a hook, so when a catfish comes and it bites down on your bait, your worm goes down, which pulls your bobber down. So that's how you know you have a bite. And I personally have the best luck catching catfish, which is shad or worms. But that moves on to my next subject. We're going to talk about my favorite fish, and that is wiper. Wiper are hybrid fish, which means they come from two different fish. Wiper are hybrid between white bass and striped bass. They've been known to be called the most challenging fish to catch, according to OutdoorLife.com, and this is because of how fast they are and how much of a fight they put up when reeling them in. So usually when you cast out, when a wiper hits your line, it takes off and it tries to go as fast, and they're pretty fun to reel in. Wiper are produced in hatcheries and released to control bait fish, so bait fish aren't overpopulating and stuff. I highly recommend grabbing your fishing pole and a box of worms and trying to catch some wipers. It's a fun time. I know for a lot of people they don't like fishing because they aren't catching anything, so hopefully you found out some good information today, which made you more knowledgeable about fishing, and I hope that I gave you some tips or tricks that you can use for the next time you go out fishing. And also, I'm going to show you guys some of my different types of lures that I use. So here, just have a regular minnow. Here, we have a worm with a hook on it. And here, earlier when I was talking about a spinner, this is a spinner. So when it's tied on your line, when you're reeling in, it just kind of moves, gets that reflection. And this is your little minnow fish on it. And that's it. Thank you guys.